Is Zoig with us in the house this evening?
Yeah, he's connected.
Okay.
Walter, are you there?
Maybe not.
I've seen him
Maybe
pop in
not
and
in
out. He might be
front.
AFK.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then 1 second. We have a video from a guest or from a participant who cannot make it this evening. I just have to hold on a second. I now understand what the issue is. In that case, I would like to ask, would anyone else like to begin speaking then, if Walter's incapacitated?
Well, do we have a specific subject? Like, how do we want to approach this? Like, what do I know? We want to talk about the conference, but is there a specific angle?
Eric, I would go to you for that. I was not present, so my ability to comment on that's not really it's restricted.
I mean, it's just it's not about having a representative summary here. We can't do that. It's more like a mix of like, okay, personal impressions and just like highlights maybe, and whatever strikes your mind and you want to talk about. And then we can come back and mix all of these, like a kaleidoscopic view, basically. And yeah, that's yeah, Leon, do you want to start with your hand?
Yeah, I've got my notes ready, so I can just jump in and maybe this will set the tone for the discussion. So I'm going to be drawing from my notes that I took while we were at the lake house after the conference. I want to get my general, reshare my general impressions with the conference, how I think it went, what I learned in broad strokes. So basically, and this will not be in any particular order, by the way, because this is kind of like the order in which I had my thoughts. So for talks, I loved all the talks that we had, and it was amazing the attendance that we had, and the interest and the dedication and the passion. And I really also enjoyed being able to see a sort of natural convergence in our ideas and our proposals. I think that's going to be really important for building a massively popular, viable program. Um, And it was also like really important, some of you have been to other conferences, but this was my first time to actually, put faces to pixels. And it was really good and important for me to really, build those personal connections up and get the lay of the land, learn what everyone is doing today. I think that was some really productive time that we spent together. And fun, a lot of fun. What happens in Montreal stays in Montreal, so I'm not going to get too deep into what all we did, I might mention the lake house and the architectural bad decisions that were there. I think that's really fun. I might touch on that. But to get back to the conference, though, one thing that I think we can do better is next time we can go after getting more workers associations. Um, and the in the real world part of our conference title, the name, of the mini conference within the broader SASE conference. I don't think we really 100% lived up to that name sake of in the real world. It was a lot of people doing academic, theoretical building block type stuff, which, I'm not opposed to that. I just think that like the focus of the conference itself didn't meet that goal, and we can do better next time on that. I think what we should do moving forward is do events where we talk to more groups and people and not just ourselves because we know each other now well enough. We've got those bonds and that trust and so forth. And now I feel like now that we've got this first conference under our belt, we're ready to do more outreach focused in-person events. Um, and there were a lot of talks and one roundtable, and for what was it? It ended up being 37 total events out of a projected 39 that were slated to show up, and 2 couldn't at the last moment, I guess. But like some more diversity there would be nice. And so yeah, we know what everyone is doing now. We've got a lot of overlap in our thoughts and so forth. And I liked the panel structures that we had, insofar as it was just panels for the most part. I liked the structure there. And then finally, one of my largest criticisms is that the diversity is not there right now. And we have, as an organization, made decisions and designed, processes and responses to that problem. We're going to focus on getting, more women and more global South voices and more, other minorities and oppressed groups and, the unions and people that are adjacent to INDEP in terms of the conversational milieu there. You've got degrowth people, you've got trade unions, you've got environmental activists, you've got all these groups, and we still don't have many connections with that sphere. And so that's something we're also going to be building up as a part of our outreach goals. Yeah, with that, I just want to close on a note that overall I think it went very well. I was very happy. It was the time of my life. I, as a American, thought that Montreal's infrastructure was awesome, and I know that some of my European comrades here disagree with me and think the exact opposite. So I'll turn it over to our next speaker, whoever that may be.
Yes, so I have a video submission from Mr. Eric, can you help me out with his last name again?
Simon Zutterlütti.
Thank you. Perfect.
Zutterlütti, yeah.
I was gonna butcher that otherwise. Yes, okay. So now I'm going to do the dangerous task of screen sharing. Here we go. You all will have to let me know if you can hear it. Is this working? Okay. There we go.
Okay, hi comrades, hi friends. I'm speaking to you from Nuremberg because I unfortunately cannot be at the call because I don't have time then. But I still want to share some of my experiences and ideas about Montreal, which I really loved as a place and as especially a place to come together socially, but also like from content wise. And I want to share a few things on like the content and the social stuff and maybe some challenges that arise from them for INDEP. And I'll first start with like the content. I had a very strong feeling that we're having a lot of synergy now, and the models, as Simon Tremblay-Pépin put it once, or will put it in a paper, they become much more like modules. Like not totally, they're still models, but still we can use the different models. They have the strength, they have the weaknesses. We can put them together in a way, and we can learn from each other. And for me, it was really one of the great academic experiences, because usually I'm at a lot of conferences and I don't learn that much, but and I have to start here and then talk a little bit about planning, but now I could start like here and we could go a lot further. And I really enjoyed this. We had a lot of high-level discussions. We had some contradictions that ran through the whole conferences, the usual one, decentral or central, with all the different attitudes towards it, or how we organize it, or also the question of wage remuneration or voluntariness, the contradiction there, or also unit of account or in-kind planning. But with all these themes, I think we make progress, and I think we learn from each other, and I think the borders get a little bit more thinner in a way, that it's not a complete synergy. We won't reach a perfect model that everybody says, yeah, we can go with this, but still we learn from each other and we move forward, and I think that's strong and it's very good. And I think INDEP did a great job there, bringing us all together. And I'm very, very happy for the organizational team that they really managed to do this. Yeah, very grateful for all this. Thank you, Amidou and Sophie and Simon. It was really great. And all the others in the background, of course, organizing. And on the individual level, I loved a lot of things. But for example, I talked about Ferdia, about self-determination theory was kind of very important for me, or interesting for me, where he started with "we've won the debate on human nature," which was kind of funny, but still his arguments to really engage with this topic was really good, and I liked it. Or Cecilia Recap thing on AI and how Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are planning the innovation of AI was just great. I didn't understand all of it, of course. It was very quick, but it was really good and cool. And it's great to have her on board. Or also the life cycle analysis that Walter Zeug is now working on. I think it's a very powerful tool that we can use with a lot of planning. And again, we can use it, you can see it in capitalist enterprises, and it still has a use value that we can transform into a socialist economy. That's great. I think there's a lot of things to learn that. Also the talks about care, that like the groundwork to working on care and planning, and the whole question of feminism and how we change the world so deeply like embedded in patriarchy. I also saw Christoph Sorg's overview of the planning debate and his thing on capitalist planning. I think they were very, like, in a broader picture, there was a lot of good stuff for me and interesting stuff, but all the other talks too. I just wanted to highlight some of them because, yeah, it makes sense to talk about some things you especially like. But I think the really important thing was there that we had this we really had our mini conference where a lot of us attended most of the time, and then we just hang out in between, and we went to lunch and we went to bars and we went and we just discussed and discussed and discussed. And if you didn't understand something in a talk, or you wanted to discuss it afterwards, you just had the time and the opportunity, and I really had loads of so deep and interesting discussions. I loved it. It was really, I felt part of a movement, a think tank, whatever you call it, a network, and it was really cool. I learned a lot. It challenged me in a lot of good ways, in a lot of tough ways too, but it's challenging, and I think it's very important that you don't discuss people with they maybe understand part of what you're saying about, but you discuss with people that really know what you're going for, and they want to understand you, but they also want to criticize you, and that's very challenging in a way, and very nice too. And yeah, I learned a lot, and it was very important for me, and a lot of new ideas for papers or for working together came out of it. And yeah, I find kind of in the getting more and more a political home for people, and also for me it was very beautiful and nice. And some challenges that arise from it. Of course, diversity is a huge issue. I think it's because we're doing grand narrative, and it's a very technological debate in a way. It's very male-centered, and there we have a lot of things to do. We have to change our own structures, of course, but we also have to merge our debate with the larger democratic discussion on utopia, because planning can only be part of it. We need feminist and perspectives from Global South, non-Eurocentric perspectives from different work backgrounds, be it steel workers or farmers or whoever. So, and they have to bring forward their own utopias, and we have to planning has to become part of this utopian environment and this process of building together a socialist utopia and strong narratives. Which brings me to the second point, narratives is something that we have to work on. It's kind of difficult to go for planning. We have to confront our historical past, of course, and be very serious about that, because we tried socialism and it didn't work. Yeah, some parts of it worked, but a lot of it didn't, and we have to be very sensitive there and to understand, especially people, for example, in Eastern Europe, or for me also in Eastern Germany, it's very difficult to talk about planning. And I think it's very important to take these experiences into account and to get in a fruitful engagement with them. I think also the discussing of the models could be in more detail and more integrated even. And we're doing now a working group on it in INDEP, and I think we'll make progress there, but still there's a lot to be done. The building of narratives I already talked about, and the other thing is organizational. Like, how do we meet? We want to have a live meeting every year, but we have to organize it. We have to get the funds for it, and all these funding stuff. It's so much work. I'm so happy that people do it, but we have to get our really things together, and to build this environment, it really can work together and meet each other, because it really showed that like these personal connections that came out of really being somewhere together, and then also having a lot of free time together and spending time chilling together and going to the lake and all these kind of, it's very important for me. And I think it's very important for our network in general. And all in all, it was really, I loved it. It was very, very great experience for me, and I want to organize it again. I'm very grateful for the people that did it, and we'll continue, and it will be great, I hope. All the best from I'm Simon Sotaluti.
Then, on that note, would anyone like to go next or respond to Simon?
How about Walter maybe, because I know he has to leave rather early.
Is Walter there? I'll ping him. Okay. Then the other Simon, the Canadian Simon, would you like to go first? I saw you had your hand raised.
The funny Simon, I think it is.
The funny Simon. Yeah.
It's a story about Christophs. There's a lot of Christophs, and some are funny, some are not. Some are good looking, some are not. Anyway, it's good to see you all again. Very, very happy that some of you could come to Montreal, and I'm really happy with what we did. I will not repeat what Simon already said. That I'm agreeing with all of this. Our big challenge is diversity. Our big challenge is having people from outside of North America and Europe. We had people who were planning to come from Mexico. We had someone from Turkey with, but like it's nice that Fikret was there, but he's in the debate since like 1990. So it's less surprising, let's say. But we had someone from Nepal who was supposed to come but didn't get a visa. This is also the challenge of organizing stuff in person. Visas and rules and regulation imposed by states are in the way. So we have to think about that. As much as I fully agree with Leon that seeing people face to face and being there and getting to chill together and all that is great, we have to know that it restrains the number of people that can join us from the global south. And the problem is also diversity in gender, which our current attending in this talk shows quite clearly. So yeah, we have to do something. I think it's pretty obvious what we have to do. We have a very close organization that's called the Alternative to Capitalism Network. They have a much wider diversity. We should do more events with them. We should show them how relevant our stuff is for theirs, and engage in discussion and events together, seminars together. Like that, for me, that's pretty, like we won't force anyone to be interested in planning. Hence, we should be interested in what people from a diverse background are interested in and bring them in, and have discussion with them maybe on their basis. So I think that's an easy thing we could do. Also, I really agree with Leon that we could have people much more involved in movement, even though some of us are in academia and involved in movements too. But if we want to do that, we really have to think about the venue, because SASE is a very, very academic venue, with the cost of entry and all that. It's possible, but unlikely, that people from social movement will come. So if we want to think about having a more kind of activist social movement kind of event, I think some reflection on the venue we use should be done. And I think if we want to have an event in the future, we should start talking about it now. What is next year's event? What is the year after event? I think this should be on our radar to start thinking about them, because we decided we would organize the Montreal conference around this time last year. So it takes time. We didn't work full time on this. Obviously, we didn't, but still, it's a lot of preparation. So that's it. Very, very happy with the conference. I learned a lot. I have a lot else to say more about content, but I focus now on the more organizational stuff.
Okay, and then if anyone would like to speak next, please use the like hand raising function on Zoom. If you need help with that, let us know. Okay, or is Walter Zeug ready?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, perfect. And then Walter, I will hand it off to you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the format, and really, really nice to see you all again. I will not repeat what everybody else already said, and I mainly agree to all of that. But I maybe want to highlight some specific points. So I think from a broader view on the discussion, I would very much agree to what Leon said. So that for me, it was very striking how convergent the debate and the topic is at the moment, which is like the main development compared to the 20, 30 years before. Sure, I'm also very, very grateful for the feedback which Jacob and me received for the cybernetic democratic economic planning approach and the application of LCA. And why is that? I mean, of course, because we are very, very smart and sympathetic and so on and so forth. But I think the main point, and this leads to something which is important for all of us, is because I think it suggests somehow a practical and concrete approach to likewise problems of planning, even though it is quite abstract. But I think this is something which we have to even more strengthen in the future to, yes, have more macro level discussions, but to really be able to show why economic planning can be a practical solution for concrete transformations. And the more and the better we do that, the more attention we will get in more mainstream discussions, other disciplines, and with such messages, we will be successful at other conferences as well. And I think this is one of the also main challenges of the future, to really convey these messages outside of our bubble, because we know that we have something which actually can be a good answer for questions others know, but maybe haven't even dared to propose yet. I think beyond that, we are dealing with such immense complexity on the topic that, as already said, we have to modularize things and to see how we can synergize these modules. So that means we have to identify topics where we have certain expertises in and to make them compatible with each other. Something also Simon already pointed out, we have to push beyond all the technical approaches, the imaginaries of a life beyond capitalism in a post-capitalist world of economic planning, so that we get some sort of an idea, a graspable idea of what it actually would be like, or maybe how it feels like, and what the difference is to be there and why we want to be there, or why we at least should try it. To address all the challenges, this is also something I think which was pretty clear at the end. To address all these challenges, we need to build capacities and infrastructures which stay. So this will be also one of the big challenges to address, that we try to gain fundings and that we try to gain support by institutions, people, organizations, and so on and so forth, to make this steady and to be actually able to accept the challenge of dealing with this complexity, at least for the next 5, 10, 20, and so on years. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Then I would invite our next speaker.
Is it okay if I go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. I have a couple of notes. Of course, I need to cut stuff out because otherwise there's so much repetition. I will start with actually I think one of my favorite presentations, like they were all great. They were all great. But one of my favorite presentations was the one by Pablo on supply chain planning. Because it connects so many different aspects that we've been talking about that have been emerging, but also that were at the conference. Like there is an aspect of how does capitalism already exist in planning and in big corporations there, and what can we learn from that for planning practices in the future and democratizing them, but also there already exists infrastructure. How can we use them as strategic leverage points? We don't have to start from zero. But it also moves us away from the idea of like that's something that Antoine Jordan, I think, maybe made clear with his online presentation a couple of days before, which is we probably have to move away from this idea of planning the economy and then look more specifically into specific sectors and like, okay, planning one sector, for example, for how logistics, how the whole production process works there might look vastly different than from other sectors. And like the agricultural sector is probably very different from like, I don't know, steel and energy, stuff like that. And I think this like supply chain view like taps into these kinds of tendencies. Yeah. And I want to go into I did this workshop on mapping our ecosystem of actors in the planning ecosystem. And I've been thinking a little bit about that because I think this explicit mapping that we did in the workshop, and that's like gonna like some kind of map coming out of that, is important because it can bootstrap kind of like connections that are latent, that are already invisible there, and it makes us less dependent on highly connected individual, on like familiarity with the ecosystem, etc., and can kind of like synthesize like a collective decentralized intelligence. So it can be like a jumping off point for getting into the ecosystem faster, making personal connections easier when new people come into like when, for example, we in INDEP get new members and or new people who want to contribute. Like it's just like a very good bootstrapping instrument. But I think what's also, and I think we're all in agreement with this, but there's still this more intangible sense of identity and community that needs to be forged through events like this, through like personal encounters, like face-to-face interactions. That's kind of like the ground upon which like then other stuff can be built. And I've like a short little side note here. I've been to conceptualize this a little bit. I've been reading a really crazy book called Strategy Without Design: The Silent Efficacy of Indirect Action. I can link you the PDF actually. It's written by business and management scholars, but it's like a bong rip type book. Like they go deep into Heidegger and what even is thinking and schematization. Like it's a really crazy book, but basically in the book they contrast a direct approach versus an indirect approach to strategy. And direct is what we would usually call strategy. Like you survey your environment, you take stock, you define goals, and then you find out, okay, what are the best possible paths to get from A to B? Or like any kind of spin on this kind of method, everything we do when we usually think strategy. Also the stuff we did in the lake house, for example. And so what they call indirect strategy then is a whole different shift in perspective. It's moving away from the kind of like the stated and the intentional part and the part where like real agency is kind of like at least seemingly located, to the what are the small factors, the small processes which actually make things happen, which then at the end compound and end up in an outcome that can be called strategically aligned or not. And these are more like, how do people perceive their environment, opportunities? How do they tend to feel about things and act upon these things? These are much more intangible, cultural kind of things. And these are incredibly fucking important. Like we all have the experience of like, we made like an explicit plan, but kind of like this indirect strategy thing, like just doesn't work out. The conditions are not there to follow up on it, to put it into practice. Therefore it fails, therefore frustration, yada yada, we've all had it 1,000 times. And the book itself is it's like very much against direct strategy and very much for indirect. They are also Hayekians and so on and so on. Like I totally disagree with like a lot of the stuff in the book, but I think what we need is kind of both. Like to look at to how do these two things interact? Like how do these big strategic plans that we state and that we like consciously think and deliberate about, how do they interact with this more intangible kind of like, okay, what can actually be followed up? What is stuff that we might not actually perceive, but we only perceive the consequences of them? And so they also have this like nice metaphor of like the direct approach is navigating, where you have a map, and the indirect strategy is wayfinding, where you are always in the terrain and you orientate yourself in the terrain, but the horizon is ever shifting and you never have a fully big overview of what's actually happening. So like that connects basically to my main point with the I think we can have both rationality and vibes, and both like to make it simple, and they're both important and both need to be cared for. And that's like sometimes we forget about one of these things. But yeah, so that's kind of like how can we strategically conceptualize why are these maybe less tangible things like super, super important? And yeah, kind of my strategic, reflective conceptualization view on why are these personal encounters important. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Pablo, are you giving a thumbs up or do you want to speak?
Yeah, I can go now.
Okay, all right, cool.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm not going to repeat a lot of stuff, but I do want to say that for me, the best thing of the conference was actually going there and meeting everyone It was great to have the chance to, or the fun to go there. So thanks a lot, Simona and the other organizers. I really, really enjoyed the talks, and also even more the discussions we had after the talks. Maybe we were 90% of the time talking about planning, which was great. We're we're a bit freaks of planning, but you don't get this chance very often, so it was great. Well, regarding the content, I wanted to say something that I commented with my colleagues in sitcom, that it surprised me that there was not so many talks about democracy. Maybe I'm not sure if there was any talk focused on democracy, which I think is some aspect that for me was a bit surprising, and I think we should talk or research this topic more in the future. Like, I don't know, direct democracy, referendums, councils, how does this interchange with planning? How do we actually use democracy in planning and all this stuff? I also think it would have been nice more talks about cybernetics and all this stuff, because I know there's a lot of people interested in this, so I think we can try to start working on this subject, maybe doing some more event or some more talks or some more introductory material. And what else I have in my notes? Well, I also really liked the talks that proposed actual tools. I think they are more important than the models. And we see this shift from models to modules, right? Where I think we now value more specific tools that we can use in different scenarios than big holistic models that try to tackle everything in the planning debate. So I really like the analysis tool by Walter, or the self-determination theory by Ferdia, the AI and planning stuff. Also, I really like the analysis of actual existing experiences. Like, I wasn't in this talk in person, but I was listening to it before about the talk from Sam about these currencies and food. Well, these non-market economies, let's say, of in Vermont, where they are self-sustainable in food and they share their food. I also like the talks that analyze previous experiences, like the German Democratic Republic by Simon. Also, the talk about the French post-war planning by I don't remember his name. But I think all these talks that tackle more concrete stuff and they are not left in the abstract are for me the most valuable, and I really learned a lot in this, Antoine. And I really learned a lot in this conference. And yeah, I think more or less this is what I wanted to say. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Then, would anyone else? Okay, Feria, then I'd like to let you speak.
Yeah, I think I'm last, right? So I'm going to be very brief. I think a lot of ground has been covered. Then we can use the time for questions and answers and so on. So let me see. I'm going to be very brief. So what will I say? The first thing I want to say is that the conference is very, very well organized. I think that our Quebecois comrades did a fantastic job of organizing the event. It was efficient, just well put together. I think we gave a very even the audiovisual stuff was conducted very well, and all of the talks were uploaded ridiculously quickly. Very impressive. So yeah. say that. I think we gave a very good account of ourselves as a community of researchers and practitioners for anybody who would pop in and see what was going on. I agree completely about the criticism of how male, in particular, we were and are. One point in our favor is that on another note, I think the diversity was good, which was the mix of backgrounds, academics, independent researchers, activists, and so forth. I think that was very healthy, and it's something which obviously would have made us stand out within SASE, and long may it continue. What do I want to say apart from that? Just on content, I think this is more what I'm about to say. It's less a reflection of the conference, really, and more a reflection of where the work is, the research is. But if we could have more on, sorry, so the start with the positive. The positive was the presentations were very strong, and it's clear that we have a very strong research community, and we're making progress. And so we have this group, and obviously a lot of people who weren't there. So we have this very powerful asset, which is able to get work done, and that's something that came through. What I would say is, if we could have more on the ecological crisis, it's really, really missing. And another thing is on the whole international or planetary aspect. I know, for example, Simon has written an article on this with others, which is great to see. It's generally a topic that people don't, we don't like to touch with the barge pole. It's something that appears at the end of every book as it would be great if somebody wrote something about this, but it's so key, and we don't want to touch it because it's so thorny, but at the same time it's probably of the most practical benefit. Yes, but on the other hand, there is an entire panel on social reproduction, again a topic that, at least within what is considered the planning space, is not dealt with as much as it could be. So that was something that was strong. Yes, transition as well, Eric. So we had maybe a couple things on that, but generally transition. If we could have more on this, of course, these are all topics that I didn't touch at all. So, but somebody should, just not me. I was talking about psychology and income and planning in general. Right. So I think I'll leave that there, and yes, that's it from me.
Okay, so we're coming up at about the hour mark. I'd like to invite someone else to speak. Maybe we'd have two more, and then we can start to wind down for the last 30 minutes of our meeting. Okay, does anyone else have any thoughts or comments about the conference? Normally I would filibuster here, but I wasn't there, so I can't offer any insight. Okay. Nobody? Then, yeah, I guess, Leon? Okay, there you go. Go for it.
Yeah, just to I guess add a few of these things that have been said. I like the idea of sharing a favorite talk, and I think I'm a little bit torn. I've had some time to digest all of the talks in my notes. I took so many notes. But it's hard to pick out a favorite, it just is. But a couple that were really notable to me were the ones on social determination theory, the one that Cecilia did on industrial planning that's being done right now by our favorite world controlling conglomerates. And then also, I like the focus shift from models to modules. And I think we're going to keep going in that direction as we talk more, because those modules are going to break apart farther and farther until we reach individual problem-solving procedures. And I think that's, that is a sort of shift towards a programmatic focus that I think is very sorely needed. And I'm very happy to see that we're headed in that direction already. I in physics, I am very skeptical of the existence of theories of everything, and planning models, societal models, feel like these sorts of, ill-fated theories of everything, but they're a good first try to attack problems from a top-down level, and then you can break it apart further like we're doing. So I do think that they're important as a first step in that process of designing and implementing real alternatives to capital. So Eric, what you were talking about with that book that you're reading, I make the same distinction like with nominal versus effective goals and the interplay there. And I was gonna put some of that in my talk and I didn't. So, um, and yeah, I'm just super excited that there are so many threads of conversation to continue now and make a lot of progress on.
Okay. Eric, I know you have your hand raised, but I was told that Louis Maxime has some very spicy content that he would like to share with us, if he so chooses.
I have nothing more to add than the comment I just put it, because the captation of the videos are nice and everything, but at the same time, just to have this more work to just look at the PowerPoint as looking at the video, it's kind of difficult for some of those. So maybe in the future, either in the captation or maybe in post editing, we can have some kind of budget so we can just bring the video and the PowerPoint together. Maybe for diffusion, could be just better.
Okay. Then Eric, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I have something to say, but I want to suggest if we could maybe end the recording and then transition into the open discussion kind
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
like
Okay. Yeah, Dario, did you catch that?